Hello, Formula One fans. Once again, it's time to put you guys in pole position, driving the conversation as all of our eyes were on the circuit of the Americas for the US Grand Prix, where Max showed us another masterclass, double pole position, double race wins, really putting the pressure on the McLaren boys. And we'll be getting into all of that with my VIP guest. But of course, we're nothing without you guys as well. So we want your opinions on all the action in the chat box as well. The ever presence that are Gary and Ewan. Great to see you in there, guys. Let us know what you thought of race weekend and what you're making of Max as he claws back down the papaya boys. I love the analogy that the broadcast team in the UK were using, saying that Max is like the T-Rex from Jurassic Park who's chasing down the truck as they're driving away, and you've got Oscar and Lando on the truck. We will see how it all plays out. But listen, I've got to say a big hello. I'm starting to talk too much already, but a big hello for my VIP guest who is returning. We've not spoke to her since Monaco, which seems that it was only a couple of races ago, but it's been about 11, in fact. Jordan Taylor. Jordan, thank you so much for joining us again on the show.
Hello. Thanks for having me again. I'm happy to be back.
Yeah, part of the Driven by Us family as well, improving the diversity within the world of motorsport, which we absolutely love and adore. Jordan, so yeah, 11 races since we last spoke. What's been going on? What have you made of what's happened? Did you ever suspect way back in Monaco that Max could potentially be battling it out for a 5th championship this year?
If you'd asked me in Monaco, I probably would have said maybe, just because Max is Max. But then I think with everything that's transpired since then, no. I would have, there's no shadow of a doubt in my mind that I don't think Max would have been in contention, but he's somehow pulled it off.
Yeah, too true. And then we had 2 races as well, didn't we? Possibly the Grand Prix wasn't quite as exciting as the sprint, but I mean, what could trump the chaos that was turn 1 for the sprint race? We'll get into all of that and more, but we got to pay our first props, of course, to the 4-time world champion, Max Verstappen. As I said, double pole position, double race win. I guess I'm going to ask a question about McLaren in talking about Max. Is there domination over Jordan, and how has it ended so quickly?
I think McLaren's domination isn't necessarily over, but I think Max is Max. Because you still see where Yuki ends up, and I think Yuki's he's not necessarily where he started off the season getting into that Red Bull, but he's still not fighting the McLarens, he's not fighting the Mercedes as often, he's not fighting even the Ferraris when they are a bit further down. He's kind of still in that midfield, upper mid-range. And so I think Max is Max, and he's just driving that car to its full capacity. They've made a few upgrades here and there, but I think McLaren's dominance isn't necessarily over. It is just diminishing a bit.
So you think that they could bounce back then?
I think
particularly this race, it felt like the tyre advantage has completely disappeared. And then, actually, you know what? I don't want to do this yet because we're going to talk about McLaren. Let's give Max his props. Max dominated the weekend. In the Grand Prix, literally after turn 1, he was just down the road, wasn't he?
He just flew off into the sunset going down that hill.
Yeah, and that Red Bull seem to have got it working again. I know you were saying that Yuki hasn't quite been to the standard of Max, but we know Max is a once in a generation. But also in Yuki's defense, he doesn't have the high downforce front wing, does he, that Max has? And I'm not saying that would make all the difference, but Yuki doesn't quite have the same set of tools.
No. And I don't think Yuki ever can really compare to Max entirely. I would just still expect to see him a little bit higher towards like P4, P5 if Max is like really contending for P1 every week like he is.
Yeah, Gary making the point about tyre deg being an issue for all teams this weekend, and particularly Gaz, they couldn't get that hard tyre fired up, could they? The strategy that Pirelli tried to enforce really didn't work, did it, Jordan? And we saw during the race, probably that's the Grand Prix probably paid for that, in fact, didn't it?
And I think it made it a little bit, I think the mediums almost functioned as a hard tire because so many of them only did a 1-stop. Half of them didn't even do a 2-stop race, and I was expecting it to be a 2-stopper. And if you're not really doing 2 stops in a race like COTA, you don't get the massive gaps, and there was also nowhere to slot them into because we saw that with Lando. Lando had nowhere to go when he was trying to pit when Charles pit, and so it's just a really difficult race if you have to do a one-stopper. How far can you really make that stop go? And I don't really know how much more Pirelli could have done other than choosing different tire compounds, but it didn't work out.
Yeah, because they jumped an extra one. Was it the C0 that they used?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so maybe if they'd used the C1, the teams would have got it. But then they may have thought, oh, but there's not enough of a difference in deg. You can see what they were trying to do, but it just absolutely didn't pay off at all. Something that did pay off, though, was Yuki Tsunoda's approach to turn one at both the sprint and the Grand Prix. I guess, do you think Yuki's kind of playing it? He's got nothing to lose now within the Red Bull family?
He's got nothing to lose because at this rate, he either keeps the seat, which I don't necessarily think will happen, or he goes back to Racing Bulls, but then it's who do you get rid of, him or Liam?
Mm.
And then, or he's out of the Red Bull family completely, and he's got nothing to lose if that third option is an option, he still needs to impress the other teams, and so just go full send.
Yeah, it works out, particularly with everybody else in the sprint hitting each other. If you can just about make your way through. I mean, he did acquire an extra front wing for a little bit, for about half a lap, didn't he? But miraculously, no floor damaged and managed to do well in the sprint race as well. You mentioned about going back to the Racing Bulls. Could you see that happening in any shape or form then? Because, that team exists to provide drivers for the senior team. So if there's a driver that's had his shot in the senior team and it hasn't worked out, we've seen this previously. Once they go back for a mini period of time, they're very quickly out of the Red Bull system.
I think it would be kind of his off-ramp. My thought that might happen if he was going to Aston when Fernando retired. So, like, if Racing Bulls makes an agreement with him and with Aston that, okay, when Fernando finally retires, Yuki will just seamlessly move off of the Red Bull team into that seat, I could see that happening.
Because of the Honda association.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because especially with Red Bull getting rid of the Honda as their manufacturer, I think that's what's happening.
Well, Helmut Marko has said that a decision about the Red Bull seats in both teams is going to be made in Mexico. If you were Helmut, what would be that decision for you in both teams?
I lost you for a second.
Okay, so if you were Helmut Marko, what would be the decision you'd make that apparently is set to be announced in the next race weekend?
I would actually keep Yuki where he is because Isaac is very clear that he does not want that seat.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you push Isaac because ultimately it's the consistent pattern that Red Bull has of we're going to force a driver who's not entirely ready for that seat into that seat rather than keeping someone who's not awful but not fantastic. And Yuki's actually did quite well for the way that Red Bull's built, for the fact that it is so twisty and that it is a car built around Max. I would keep him where he is. I would keep Isaac where he is. I think you might eventually have to make an opening for someone like Arvin Lindblad to come up through the ranks, but that's not a necessary jump that you need to make or decision you need to make tomorrow.
Yeah, because I'm just taking a look here. Because Max did, how many years did Max do at Toro Rosso? He did 2 seasons, didn't he?
Yeah.
Isaac, that would be even a year ahead of Max, and we know what everyone thought about Max and his potential. So do you think they could be in danger of ruining another young driver by going too soon, too early?
Oh, absolutely. And that's always Red Bull's problem. Because they want the best, but they see the best and the potential of someone in a different car, in a different setup, in a different team entirely. And while they are sister teams, it's not the same car.
Yeah, Gary's saying, though, very good point, Gaz. Why would you make an announcement now to keep drivers on the ball? If you don't announce anything, then it keeps everybody hungry. I guess particularly Yuki, right?
Yeah. But then the question becomes, You have to look out for the drivers who do need a seat. And so you can't make that decision in Abu Dhabi. You have to make it before then, because if you make it in Qatar even, that's a bit too late, because by that point people are announcing who's going where. Are these seats open? Is someone getting booted from a different team? Things like that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think across the rest of the grid, though. I mean, is there any other seats actually available? Isn't, apart from Alpine? But I think if you're a driver at Red Bull, then are you going to be on Alpine? Are Alpine going to be on your radar?
I would hope not.
But then we don't know Alpine's performance, I guess, for next year. And so if you were someone who was without a seat, I guess you'd at least sit down and have a conversation with the French outfit, wouldn't you?
I think you would have a conversation with as many people as possible, but there's not. I think if anything, if he does end up losing that Red Bull seat, he'll be a reserve driver for a year and then find somewhere when in 2027. So I think a lot of people are holding firm to make it through the first year of the new regs, see how the car turns out, and then they'll make some shifts.
Yeah. So Max Verstappen, where's he going to finish in the Drivers' Championship for you this season then, before we push it forwards?
I could see him in P1 or P2.
Okay. So you could see him either winning it or at the very least splitting the McLaren drivers.
I think that would be the scenario.
Let's push it forwards then and talk about the Papaya boys. And the first discussion we got to have is the chaos of turn 1 in the sprint race. How did it play out for you? How did you see it? Because I know, looking at a lot of different articles, and even Zach Brown initially was saying, oh my God, some terrible driving behind us. And then afterwards he was like, no, I can't put that on the Hulk. I posted online saying, oh my God, Oscar got hit by the Hulk and then hit Lando. Someone called me out and said, no, Oscar hit the Hulk. And yeah, so how did you see it?
Well, after I was done covering my eyes and screaming with the carnage, because I was like, my initial reaction was Nico hit Oscar. And I think most people's were. But I think after watching it back, I was kind of on the same wave as like Zach Brown. I think the only defense of Oscar I can offer is that there's no way he would have known that Fernando was on the other side of Nico. He wouldn't have been able to see him. And so he wouldn't have known that turning so sharply would have left Nico with nowhere to go. And so I think that's partially why they also called it a racing incident, because it's not like he was at fault because he turned, but he wasn't at fault for not knowing that there was another car and that they were going in 3 deep, if that makes sense.
Like they say in the driving test, mirror signal maneuver. And Martin Brundle made a very good point, though. He said, they are very limited in what they can see. They can't move their heads at all because of the hands device and the extra bit of car that goes on top of the shoulders as well there.
You had to come out and
have a good prowl around. But it made for very kind of dramatic watching, didn't it?
Very.
and of course,
banner in my predictions for the weekend.
Yeah, and of course, this is then all off of the back of the little nudge that they had in the previous race in Singapore that we heard about repercussions for. So those repercussions didn't seem to hold Lando back too much across race weekend. But what did you make even of that scenario? It was whispers from the Thursday, wasn't it? From the day before we actually had any action on track. This was being talked about, but no one knows specifically what these repercussions are. How do you think they dealt with it?
Explained it.
Pardon?
Canal Plus explained the repercussions. They confirmed finally what they are.
Oh, okay.
And then Sky made a little shady comment about it during quali. Basically, the alleged repercussions are that Oscar will get to choose the position he goes out in quali before Lando does.
And is that for the rest of the season?
That's apparently the rumor. I think that's a bit excessive for a love tap, but I don't think
I like that.
I call it that because it wasn't hard enough to put him in the wall. If it was hard, if he had gone into the wall, I would have had other thoughts about it. But
yeah, I guess also as well though, it feels a bit harsh in a sense of, we talked about it last week on the show, but Lando instinctively, because he'd already nudged Max, so he'd give Max one love tap. So he was having a bit of a threesome here, a Max love tap, and then didn't want to go into Max anymore. So a natural instinctive reaction is to then switch to the right. Oh dear, my teammate's there. But I guess maybe then the argument is it was excessively aggressive. With that in mind, do you think that McLaren possibly need to put in place some team orders for the start of Grand Prix? So let them go at it via qualifying and whatever they want to do. But I feel like they need to be told to hold position, don't they? Because at the moment, they're causing a lot of issues for each other.
I think no. I think let them race. Let the two of them figure it out, because I think McLaren has honestly had their fingers in everything too much. I think they've intervened too many times this season. And at some point, I think you're seeing it now. You're seeing it with what happened at Coda, with Oscar having to have his entire car, well, not entire, but have the car rebuilt with Lando, both him and Lando being out of the race, and then Max going on to win both the sprint and the race, and now their championship is at risk. Ultimately, the two of them have to be adults and figure out, is it worthwhile continuing to hit each other and crash each other out for the rest of the season and losing to Max? Or can we decide to race fairly and do the job that we're being paid to do? The team needs to stay out of it because they've made too many decisions. It's been the most annoying thing about the season. And it kind of goes to what Gary's asked. I think Oscar has had his confidence knocked, not this weekend, but way back when they made that slow pit stop for Lando. And he had to get the place back. I don't think he feels that the team is behind him as much as they were at the beginning of the season. And I think it's why he wasn't as fast this weekend. He wasn't as confident going into everything. He wasn't as good as he normally was in Singapore. And I think Singapore really also might have reconfirmed some of those beliefs, because you've just been told, my teammate hit me. Are you not going to make him get the place back? Are you not going to fight for me and really be the team I need you to be?
Yeah. Also, his mum has been very vocal and said something very similar. Do you think that that's helpful for Oscar's cause? And quick shout out to Daruv has asked for a shout out as well from the chat box. That's a new person that's joined us, I think. So thanks for joining the show, Daruv. So yeah, Jordan, what do you think about that? Is mum going public, as it were?
I think he needs someone in his corner. And if it's not going to be the team, who is it going to be? And if it has to be his parents, his mom, I don't really think he's on Twitter as much, so I don't think it matters. But
this is modern parenting at its best, isn't it? Fully grown millionaire man. And his mum's coming out and, like mum marching up the school and going, I'll have you for my kid. Like
that's pretty much what's happening.
Yeah. So Gary talking as well about the issue with the second pit stop for McLaren. Yeah, the broadcaster Gaz made the point about a wheel gun issue, but they haven't released anything. And Zach Brown, in response to it, said that he didn't want to guess at what the issue was. Maybe. How do you see it?
I feel like it creeps up in the heat, though. It creeps up in those really hot races, like Coda. I think, what was it? Was it Budapest? And that was a bit of a warmer one. It's not every race weekend, but I think, and even in Singapore, it was a little bit slower for Oscar's stop after Lando's stop. I think it's something with the heat and those wheel guns.
Yeah, at least it isn't just one specific driver, though. There's a team member that's sabotaging one of them. Could you imagine that if it was the same driver every time?
Someone had to do like a breakdown of how many times it affected Lando and how many times it affected Oscar, because people were speculating of the team is going after Lando, but someone did a breakdown and you can tell that it's really even among the two of them.
So we talked about this issue with Oscar Piastri's confidence. And of course, we've got to remember he's still a very young man, only in his third season in Formula One. But what does he do to turn it round, Jordan? 3 tough weekends he's had now. No podium since Italy. And, of course, they're both looking over their shoulder at Max Verstappen, who is hunting them down and has outperformed them for the last 4 Grand Prix. What does Oscar do? Because he's the one that's really struggling at the moment.
I think it's one of those moments where you have to either really decide if you want this Because I think if Oscar decides that he wants this, he has to be at it for himself and not for the team. And I think he has to remember who he is. And I think he needs like a good talking to from his mom, his partner, from Mark Webber, from anybody who is in his corner. And he just needs to remember that he is that guy. He is Oscar Piastri, the Iceman.
Yeah.
He was
That's right. He was the Iceman 2.0 mid-season, wasn't he? And now it just feels that he can't do anything right at the moment.
I think, and again, I know that the Singapore podium aspect wasn't his fault or the team's fault or anything, but I think that really just messed with his head. And I do feel for him in that, because I don't know how I would feel having to go into the rest of the season seeing that my team was behind me celebrating.
Right. Oh, right. So when he was left, in the media pen there, that's a difficult moment. That from what I understand, they were all pulled up.
It was just that Oscar was to go up, and then they found Lando on the walk from the paddock through the podium, and so they ran into him on accident. It wasn't Lando's fault at all, and it wasn't anybody. It was just that someone should have had the thought and left and gone and gotten him, or just been like, "Hey, we're just going to leave you off this podium for a second."
Yeah, I mean,
it was
the scrutiny. Everyone looks at absolutely every single element, don't they? Gary just saying they need to ignore Max. How can you do that? Is that possible?
I think you have to. And I think you have to remember that your teammate is your biggest threat. And he needs to be confident in himself, in his own decision making, whether that means he has to make strategy calls and decide, like, I do not care what Lando is doing outside of he's a competitor.
Yeah. Big shout out to Eddie B from Newport Beach. He's a buddy of mine. So he's just saying he thinks that it's going to be the lack of experience that's going to cost them the championship in the end. And how relaxed Max just doing Max things, right?
And
how upset do you think that they're both going to be, Jordan? Because it feels that perhaps the development of this car has been sacrificed because they're so confident on the constructors, which they've now won.
This is their championship to lose. This is Oscar's championship to lose inherently, because he is the championship leader. And with, like, I've been saying this for a while, like, to my friends, and I was like, with Lando having that mechanical DNF, where his power unit went out, with all of the things, I don't know how he didn't run up the score further. And that's a shame, because this is his championship to lose.
Yeah. No, yeah, too true. Just to end then on the papaya, how does it play out for you next year? So let's say neither wins the championship. Do they both stay at the team?
Yeah.
If Lando wins the championship, does Oscar stay at the team? If Oscar wins the championship, does Lando stay at the team? Give me some dynamics of all of that.
Like at the end of 26, or like going in?
Oh, yeah. I mean, even the end of this season, perhaps something could be called out the blue. But particularly at the end of 26 then, how does it play out?
If Lando wins, Oscar will always be the second driver. It doesn't matter if he wins a championship next year. It doesn't matter what it will be. And it doesn't matter if Lando never wins another championship. I don't see him staying at that team forever unless he wins the championship.
Oscar?
Yeah.
Okay. But Lando, if he cements it, it will be, this is my house.
This is his team.
Yeah. Okay.
I think they'll both stay at least through 27. Well, no. I think they'll both stay through 26. But I'm not sure about 27, especially if that Red Bull seat stays with Yuki, and then they have an open seat, or Ferrari has an open seat because Lewis decides to retire.
For you, who's the most desirable driver out of the two? If other teams were looking at the two McLaren boys.
I think Oscar. Not because I think Lando has cemented his identity around McLaren. And I don't think that he would be able to go into another team and feel as comfortable as Oscar might be able in moving.
Right. Yeah, absolutely makes sense. And talking about a driver who has cemented his identity around the team, let's take it forward to Ferrari. because their golden boy Charles Leclerc secured their first podium in 5 races, celebrated his 28th birthday this race weekend. Where is Charles Leclerc at within this team, and where are this team at for you?
Ferrari needs a historic change. I don't think that's a hot take. I think that's a very consistent take that a lot of people have said.
But they got one.
They not really though. Like
What, Lewis Hamilton?
Lewis came in as a driver in like a historic change, but he didn't come in and just say, okay, oh, we're clearing house. We're getting rid of everybody. We're changing the branding and the dynamics. They're pretty consistent. And he's a new driver for them, but it's not a historic change in the strategy, in their approach to fans, in any of that. And I think for Ferrari to be serious about winning a championship, they have to make a lot of changes.
Gary, interesting one there. Your thoughts on it, Jordan? Said they had a good race weekend.
They did.
Is that by this season's standards, I'm assuming, not generally?
I think they had a good race this weekend. I don't know if it'll hold up, though. I think it might hold up a little bit because their car does decently in the heat, and the next couple of races are all quite warm with Mexico and then Brazil. But I think this was not a one-off, but I think it was also mostly down because the 2 Ferrari drivers, both Lewis and Charles, did an amazing drive. Charles with the defense on Lando during the race. Like most other drivers wouldn't have been able to hold off Lando as long as he did. Lewis navigating that turn 1 carnage, and even Charles as well, navigating the turn 1 carnage in the sprint. I think the onboards of both of them during that sprint are insane. And I don't think most people would have been able to navigate that car as well as they did. And especially Lewis getting that car over the finish line. Because did his brakes go out or did he have a puncture? I saw he didn't have a puncture, so I'm assuming it's the brakes went out again. And Oscar almost caught him at the end of the race again, which is why I'm like, Ferrari needs changes because that shouldn't happen. 2 races in a very short succession. You should not be having your driver's car's brakes are going out or some major issue happening at the end of the race.
Yeah, they're getting some kind of simulation wrong. But like Eddie and Ewan are both saying, props for them for the alternative strategy with Charles Leclerc during the Grand Prix, right? Starting on the soft tyres, got a really good start. Yeah, so just bringing it back to Charles real quick before we go on to Lewis. Has Charles Leclerc got a job for life at Ferrari? And does he want a job for life at Ferrari?
I think he has a job as long as he wants it. I think that team is his team. And I think Lewis even came in and knew that. That is Charles's team. That is Il Predestinato. They know that he's the golden boy. And I think it's his seat as long as he wants it, unless there's a major shift in his driving.
Yeah. Like you said, Lewis, another solid weekend, particularly towards the end of the race to keep the car on the circuit once again. Taking Charles Leclerc in the sprint as well. What did you make of there was no love lost between them when Lewis got to him before the pit stop, though, was there? Did you think that maybe he would have let Lewis through a little easier?
I think
he did in the previous race.
He did. I think the team told him to do it. I don't think it was. I think from
he was on dead soft.
Told to keep going.
Okay.
Just keep going. I have to defend against everybody. There's someone in my mirrors.
Yeah, and I mean, it kind of paid off because he did get the podium, possibly slightly to the irk of Lewis Hamilton, because it was Lewis who finished behind him in P4, and Lewis now has very much the unwanted stat of 19 Grand Prix without a podium, although, of course, he has got that sprint race win back in China. We talked last week in reviewing the Singapore Grand Prix with Alicia. She said that she feels next season could be his last. How do you feel about Lewis's evolution in the sport now?
I agree. And I hate that, but I do agree with that. Because I think next season, if the Ferrari is competitive, you might get one more after that. But I think he's at the tail end. I think he just wants to enjoy the rest of his career and finish in red.
And do you think that car can be competitive next season?
Yeah. I think anything's possible with new regulations, new engines, new everything. Anything's possible. Pigs can fly.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe there are wholesale changes coming. We did hear that Lewis had put together a whole portfolio for them in the summer break, right? A whole document that he sent over. So I'm sure that will be getting some attention, and they'll do a season review, and then maybe there will be wholesale changes behind the scenes for Ferrari, because we mentioned earlier in the season, when you've got someone who's done it for 7 years or 7 seasons winning, you've got to listen to that guy with regards to the processes and what's going on at your factory and, all of the systems that are in that team, because they haven't won for a long, long time now.
Ferrari's been without a champion for ages. And even if it means Charles winning, I think that would be more worthwhile than them continuing to lose.
Well, yeah, and I think that, it's those kind of things that are the marginal gains. We've seen them have a car that works in 2022, right? And even then, they still couldn't maintain a challenge across the season. So there could be a few things. We know that Fred Vasseur has come in and made some improvements. Actually, just real quick before I move it on, Fred, is he still the man to lead the team for you? Because I know there's been whispers.
I think Ferrari needs consistency. I think that's always been their issue. I think on the one hand, yes, they need to clean house in terms of like some of the strategic elements, but they need consistency at the top, and they've never had that. They just quickly get rid of people outside of Charles.
Yeah, big shout to Hav, who's just dropped in. He's saying bring Horner back.
Please
maybe
no.
off of the back of that comment then. So he wants to see Christian Horner heading up Ferrari. But we will get into in a little while. There was a secret bid, wasn't there, for VCarb? So we'll talk about Christian Horner when we cover those in a little while. But let's move it on, Jordan, to the Silver Arrows Mercedes. Not too bad a weekend for George Russell. I mean, a bit of a downward turn after winning in Singapore, but, more points on the board. And then more importantly, we know that both drivers will be in the overalls next season. How important do you think that is for both of them for the rest of this 2025 season?
I think it gives them both confidence. And I think, especially for Kimi, that's what they need.
Yeah, Kimi didn't have the best race weekend. Wasn't his fault in the Grand Prix. Got spun by Carlos Sainz. Managed to get some points in the sprint. What have you made overall of Kimi Antonelli in his first season?
I think my worry for Kimi was always that they rushed him a bit. And I think he's doing as well as he can for... I'm trying to think of how to say this very diplomatically. I think he's doing very well for his first season in a top team. And I think he can only go up from there, or he will crash and burn.
Yeah, well, he's got a very different pressure on him compared to the rest of the rookies, hasn't he? This is a team where you can't afford to not be performing with regards to all the people that are expecting performance, not just within the team, but partners, etc. So no will do any bedding in time, as it were. Ewan just saying about the 1-year contract for George Russell, and what does that mean with regards to Max? Huh?
Is it a 1 year? I thought they said it was like an undefined amount of time.
I think it was, they've both got at least a year. So it was kind of almost like the rumor is they're talking like Lewis's contract, where we thought he'd signed 2 years, but then a year later he was like, oh, I'm off.
I think it's a 1+1. So like they can choose to extend it for another year, and he gets 2 years total.
Yeah.
But it's only confirmed for a year.
Yeah. Possibly for the driver as well, though, because, George Russell is 27 now, is he? So for George, it's about, okay, he said as well, didn't he, in the sound bites, that Mercedes would be the only place that he wants to drive on the grid for 2026. But he doesn't know that at the end of 2026, where that team will actually be in the rankings. And he's getting no younger, and he is considered a major talent on the grid, isn't he?
Yeah. He's one of the highest paid drivers as of now. If the rumors are correct on how much his contract was for, 30 million. I think that makes him third after Lewis, I believe.
So has his worth gone up this season from the performances that we've seen, bearing in mind he's the only race winner outside of the Papaya and Max?
I think so. But I think he's always expendable because of his age. I think Toto will always prefer Kimi because Kimi is so young. And you can really mold him into the driver that you want. Now, if Kimi falls off a cliff next year, performance-wise, I think George is more comfortable. But if Kimi is competitive to him as well, I think Mr. Saturday might not be Mr. Saturday forever because you've seen how they got rid of Bottas. Bottas was incredibly consistent, and he was not a very bad driver compared to Lewis, and they very quickly got rid of him for George.
Gary makes the point, though, but he has been consistent all season, George, and he has beaten Kimi Antonelli 19-0 in Grand Prix. So it would have to be a huge turnaround for Kimi Antonelli to go toe-to-toe with George Russell.
But it's like, who are you going to keep? If Toto gets his wish or his alleged wish, and Max is like, you know what, I'm done with Red Bull. Or Oscar Piastri comes to you and is like, I want to be your number one driver.
Yeah.
Who are you getting rid of, me or George?
All right, but so George is only, 5 years older than Oscar Piastri? 27, like I said. Fernando Alonso is 44 and he's still racing. so 27. George is still a pup by Alonso standards.
He is.
Yeah, so we don't know how long George might go, but we are entering a time, I just guess, in general athleticism that they can go longer because they're looked after so well, elite athletes nowadays.
And I think Fernando, on Fernando's part, he's kept because it's Aston, and Aston needs all the help they can get.
Right.
And you need someone who's older, more experienced to feed you back feedback, because I don't really think Lance Stroll is giving you a ton of feedback crashing into everybody every week. And I think you need someone, especially going into new regulations, who can give you more of that, like that Lewis level detailed feedback. And I think Fernando and Lewis are very much on that same level in terms of how much feedback they'll give them.
Yeah, Gary making his point again from last week. You can see a George and Max swap at the end of 2026. And hey, that might work. And depending on who's in the second seat of Red Bull, George might even enjoy himself.
That's fair.
Let's push it forwards then. Talk a little bit about one of the big performers of the weekend, Nico Hülkenberg, who secured a P8 in the Grand Prix. Also qualified really well in the sprint. Unfortunately, didn't work out for him. But yeah, Nico doing well again, getting some points, first points since his podium, which I think was quite important for him because he was being outshone by his young rookie driver, wasn't he, the Hulk, for a while?
Bortoletto's a great talent. He's one of my favorite rookies. And I think watching him from F2 he's been a talent.
Yeah. Did you expect Sauber to do this well, even? I mean, we all thought that they'd be bringing up the rear, didn't we? Last season, they only scored points in one race. Yeah. And, they're 8th. So they're above Haas and Alpine now in the points in the Constructors' Championship. Whatever's going on behind the scenes, Jonathan Wheatley and Mattia Binotto have really turned that team around. And, of course, the Audi investment.
I was not expecting them to do as well as they have been doing. And I think I'm now more intrigued, and I will be wearing the Audi hat I bought in Munich because I'm actually intrigued to see how well they do next season.
Yeah, I mean, it's a historic name in motorsport, isn't it? And they've got the same driver pairing next season, but if they continue on this trajectory, we're starting to talk about, some of these drivers who might be looking elsewhere. Possibly even, I don't know, a Yuki Tsunoda or a George Russell, or, you put a blank check in front of someone like Oscar Piastri and show him the project, you never know. And
especially because long-term Audi is definitely a great option, potentially.
I love this that Ewan always comes in with a random one for driver swaps. So Ewan's won this week. So 2027, Verstappen to Mercedes, Leclerc to Red Bull, and Russell to Ferrari.
I don't know. I don't really see George learning Italian.
Right, it was Alicia last week as well, just saying like a driver that fits the red as well. Could you see George? Is he suave and cosmopolitan enough? He's very English gentleman, isn't he?
I don't see him in the red.
Yeah,
But I don't see him as not combative, but like, oh, what's the right word for it?
the opposite, amiable. So actually molding to what they want.
Well, no, like in Red Bull, like I can't see him at Red Bull either. It's like Red Bull is like always very like aggressively competitive and
Oh,
always,
Leclerc, yeah, Leclerc is very cool and calm, isn't he?
I
And then
can see Charles at Red Bull. For that I can see because I
that
think
was
he's
what
a threat.
that was what you had said, wasn't it?
No, I can't see like George at Red Bull. I'm like going through the options of like where he could go, and I'm like, I don't see him at Ferrari. I don't see him at Red Bull. I see Charles at Red Bull, but I don't think he'll leave Ferrari.
Oh, yeah, okay. All right. I'm not sure I
Like,
could see Charles Leclerc alongside BMX stunt drivers, but
if you put Charles Leclerc in a competitive car and you give him the tools to succeed and you just tell him, go full send, do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Just bring us back a boatload of points. And he has confidence in the car underneath him. I absolutely could see him on a Red Bull.
Okay. All right. Let's put a cat amongst the pigeons as well. And remember that Ollie Behrman is a part of the Ferrari Academy. Right? So, I mean, Ollie, back-to-back race points. Seems to be back on an upward trajectory, which is great. And it's also this weekend seen him lead in the statistics now against his teammate. So Ocon is slightly above in the Drivers' Championship, but head-to-heads, Behrman is now beating him in qualifying and Grand Prix. So it feels like Ollie has benefited from this pressure of the 10 penalty points over him.
I think Esteban had a really bad weekend as well, so I won't. That was Lance hit him, right? In the sprint.
Can't remember. In the Grand Prix, someone hit. Who was it? Was it?
Both of the
it was Albon. Albon hit Ocon trying to overtake Stroll, wasn't it? Something like that.
Something along those lines.
Anyway, it wasn't a good race weekend for Esteban Ocon.
And then Ollie got his penalty with Kimi, and so they've just had a really bad weekend. But I think Ollie has always been strong. But I think they're almost quite level. If you really like, when you take out a lot of the crashing or the mistakes and things like that, they're pretty even.
But they shouldn't be, should they? Yeah, but they shouldn't be even. This is the point. Like, Esteban Ocon is an established Formula One driver. So the fact that Ollie is now matching him, do we begin to remember the talent that was Ollie Behrman? Because I think maybe a couple of races ago, we'd have been saying, it's a little bit underwhelming now this season.
I just keep reminding myself that it is a Haas, and how fast does that Haas really go?
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah, again, this season's been all over the place because there was a moment when Haas, I think, were P6 in the constructors, and I remember the interviews with Ao Komatsu and people saying, "Oh my God, we can't believe that this has happened," and he was talking really positively. And now, so Ollie's got back-to-back points, but I think it's no points in 4 races for Esteban Ocon now. Which is not what you need from your more established driver when you're a midfield team.
I think they've continued to struggle with the end of the season, but I think that's a consistent thing that's happened to them when they run out of money. Like, they can't keep innovating that car.
Yeah. What do you make of that point that Gary's just said?
I could see it. I think unless somebody else competitive wants to move into that seat, I could see it.
Yeah, because I guess, and depending on what Charles Leclerc does, right? Because again, I don't think, apart from Lewis Hamilton, you wouldn't really bring anybody else in there to rock Charles' boat, would you?
I think you might. I think it depends on if they want Charles to be comfortable as the primary first driver. Yes. If they want someone to challenge him and kind of ruffle his feathers a little bit, which might spur him on to greatness.
So like Williams, what they did to Alex Albon with Carlos Sainz. Yeah, okay.
How
fair
comfortable
enough.
are they with making Charles uncomfortable is the question.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, he needs something, Charles Leclerc, because it hasn't been a happy season for him, has it? So It was five podiums, but no race wins, comparing to the previous season. 3 race wins, I think it was, for Charles Leclerc in 2024.
And I think it depends on if Ollie is ready for that seat, because that Ferrari seat comes with a lot of pressure, a lot of media access, and a lot of media performances.
Yeah.
How ready will Ollie be in a year or two? I don't know if he'll entirely be ready for that seat, to be fair, because he's, what, 19?
But wouldn't we have said that once about Charles Leclerc when he came from Sauber?
I think it was a different time, though, because I think back then when Charles moved from Sauber.
But that was when they were challenging for a championship with Vettel.
But I think the media attention is different, though.
Right.
Because you put, I think Charles, Max, Lando, they all grew with the sport as the sport grew with Drive to Survive. But I think even just seeing the attention that Ollie Behrman's girlfriend gets, Kimi Antonelli's girlfriend gets, Gabriel Bortoletto's girlfriend gets, Alexandra, Charles's girlfriend gets, it's so different compared to then. And I think the amount of media attention, I don't think they're ready for what comes with the Ferrari seat and the kind of attention. I think Lewis knew because he's Lewis Hamilton. But I don't think any of the rookies are really ready for that kind of media attention and pressure. I don't really think Kimi was, but he didn't really have an option.
Yeah. When these big options come, you've got to take them, right? It's kind of it might only come around once. Ewan, asking you, who's been your rookie of the year so far?
I think Isaac.
Yeah. Who we've not even talked about yet, who didn't have the best race weekend, but generally, Isaac Hadja, Gary backing that up. So you're in good company there, Jordan. Let's push it forwards then. Aston Martin, Fernando Alonso, solid qualifying. Didn't get the best race start, but managed to grab himself another point, which is the second half of the season's gone better for them, hasn't it, at Aston Martin? Yeah. It was pretty catastrophic to start. And I guess really, so that's when we spoke 11 races ago. So when we would have last spoken, it was like a terrible season for them. But Fernando, at least, is now turning it around. And I guess, like you're saying, it's the experience of him that means he's pulling something out of that car. What have you made of the performance? Are you slightly underwhelmed this year?
I think Aston's had consistent issues. We saw it last year with how they started off really, really strong, and then they just...
Yeah.
And I don't think you can get over that kind of deficit in 1 year with a team like Aston. And even if you have Adrian Newey coming in and doing all of this design work, that takes so much time.
Yeah. Yeah, but this season's been the opposite. So something's happened there that has put them more of an upward trajectory, whatever it may be, behind the scenes. And you've mentioned there's a dream team that's gone in there, backroom staff-wise. Yeah. What are you expecting them from in 2026?
I think 2026 will start low and then go higher, but I think they will still cap out in the middle. Because I think you can only throw so much money at this problem. But they're having all of these fundamental issues behind the scenes that have become more public over time that I don't actually know if it will be Aston Martin at the end of the season.
Yeah, very good point. All the financial stuff that's gone on, and Lawrence Stroll that made an absolutely amazing investment.
He's now,
I believe, because initially he brought the brand and the F1 team together, and they've now separated them again, haven't they?
Yes, because now it's Aston Martin Lagonda, and I think there's talk of him selling the team. Okay. And I think if he sells the team, I don't think Lance has a job, and I don't necessarily know how long they will actually be Aston Martin but I also don't know who's going to take over that kind of team with all of the infrastructure, because they just dumped a ton of money into a brand new wind tunnel, new factories, all of these different things. But who's going to want to take on that kind of expense?
Well, the rumor has it that Christian Horner's calling everybody. But we'll get into that in a little while, because we'll get into that when we talk about VCarb, because they actually had a £2 billion offer. So let's get your thoughts on that in a moment. Before we do, though, just quickly talking about Williams. I know it wasn't a Grand Prix podium, but it's a sprint podium for Carlos Sainz. Alex Albon also securing points in the sprint race. Grand Prix didn't go to plan for them, but they have very much solidified P5 in the constructors now. What does this mean for the future of Williams?
I think they have a lot of options before them, and I think it will bring in more investment, and they're not going to struggle as much as they have in the past with finding people to actually fund that team. And I think bringing in Carlos was probably one of the best decisions that they've made. I do worry about Alex's position in the team,
Really?
but
Based on what?
I just worry that they're going to get really happy with Carlos and judge Alex against Carlos in a way that's not fair.
And you think, what, not just based on circuit performance then?
Yeah.
On-track performance is going to come, what, more about marketing, pulling power, and personality?
Who brings the money, who brings all of the fans. And I think Alex does have his own fan base, but I think they just need to lean into it more, because he has such a strong fan base in Singapore. Every single time that they go to that race, there are people out the door filling entire malls just to see him. They could do really well with.
Well, I think the whole of Asia, right? I think they really need to make a push for the whole of Asia.
You could, if you do anything, if they pull a Thai, a Singaporean, a Malaysian sponsor. Granted, Mercedes has Petronas, but if you pull a Malaysian sponsor like that, you could make a ton of money with Alex.
Yeah, too true. They've got, because one of their leads is it Chinese or Japanese manufacturer? Komatsu.
Axle Action.
Komatsu is Japanese, isn't it?
Japanese.
Yeah. So same part of the world, but not quite the right people. But yeah, you're right. If they can bring in something to capitalize on Alex as a marketing factor, then yeah, the sky's the limit in that part of the world, because they are very much fanatics. But he's had a great season, Alex Albon, hasn't he? And Carlos Sainz now seems to have turned a corner, or the luck seems to have turned for him. Do you think that there is a lead driver at the moment, or do you think that they just go at it? Because it almost feels that it's one driver has a good weekend or the other one does. This is because this is their first double points in forever, right?
I think it's one or the other.
Yeah.
But I think also Carlos is a bit not aggressive, but just a bit too overconfident in the car sometimes. Like we saw with him retiring from the race after hitting Kimi.
Yeah.
But then he also doesn't take accountability for it.
Yeah, he flung it, didn't he? And it was never going to make it.
That was never going to happen in any shape, way, or that overtake was never going to happen.
Yeah. Has there been any implication for it? I've not seen anything online. Oh, there has. What?
He's getting a 5-place grid drop and 2 penalty points.
Oh, wow. Okay, so a serious one. Yeah, which is upsetting for the next race for them. Yeah. And then is he very upset about it? So so it'll be good to hear his sound bites in the week. He'll be saying,
"I blamed Kimi. He blamed Kimi in the race. He blamed Kimi in his Instagram post after the fact." And I was like, "How is this Kimi's fault? This was clearly your fault. Are we all watching the same videos?"
Hey, listen, you got to believe in yourself as a racer, though. But listen, we've not got much time left. Let's talk about VCarb, the Racing Bulls. No points scored, but the big story, like I said, this week they had a mystery £2 billion offer to buy the team. So clearly then Red Bull think that it still works as a conveyor belt for the talent. Yeah. Would you agree? Do you think it's...
Absolutely.
Is it fair to the rest of the grid?
No. No. When has Formula One ever been fair?
Yeah, too true. All right. Do you think Christian Horner could have anything to do with this mystery $2 billion bid?
Probably, but I actually don't think that they would do it, because I think at the end of the day, even though VCarb is technically a separate entity, Red Bull still is a controlling interest, and I don't with the way that Red Bull got rid of him, I don't see them letting him anywhere near their teams. Not anytime soon.
What's this? V-Cub had a rascal team kit this weekend. What does that mean?
I think it's the colors.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. So what? Gary enjoyed it. Is that what that means?
I'm not sure. I think he's just talking about the colors and.
Oh, he didn't like it. Gaz, fill us in. Maybe you're talking street lingo that me and Jordan don't know. Jordan, will there ever be a female driver in F1 coming from Ewan?
Yeah, I think yes, but not right. We're not right now. I don't think that there will be a female driver out of the current F1 Academy drivers, but I think you could see one from their Champions of the Future Academy that they're running, because they have a whole program for 9 to 16-year-olds, which will funnel them into F1 Academy earlier. And I think that's always been my thing with F1 Academy. None of the drivers who are in there right now are going to be in F1. That's pretty obvious if you know the trajectory that they have to go through.
It's about creating some heroes, though, isn't it? You have to create some heroes for the 5 and 6 year olds that exist now,
and that's the goal right now.
Yeah,
but then you continuing to fund those, because they have 3 groups. It's like 9 to 11, 11 to 13, 13 to 16 in terms of their karting and single seater program for younger girls. But then those girls will be the girls who move on to either being the wildcard drivers for F1 Academy or the future drivers for the teams.
Yeah,
I can talk about F1 Academy all day long.
It would be great to see, the evolution where maybe we get to see some of them in FP1 sessions at some point in the next couple of years as well. And Formula E, we both work in, and they do a female-only test as well. So it's another great opportunity for them to be in some seriously high-powered single-seater cars.
They're doing one in Valencia, and a lot of the F1 Academy drivers have actually been pulled up into the women's test that's going to be in Valencia next week. And so Chloe Chambers got announced from Mahindra today, Abby Pulling, Bianca Bustamante, they're all coming back and doing the women's test. So it's very exciting.
Yeah, it's great to see. And then obviously them just being around the paddock as much as possible. And, there's getting more and more coverage, from the Driven by Us community. Amber Jones has been going to some of the races and doing coverage for them, etc. So it's just about building that awareness.
Absolutely.
That then creates, it's the stories that people buy into and the characters. And they've got their reality TV show as well now, haven't they, for the F1 Academy? So slowly but surely, Ewan, they will get there.
I say give it 5 to 10 years.
So last up, just talking about the current F1 grid, Alpine. So we would have talked about them in Monaco, that they weren't having a great season. And we can continue talking about them now, 11 races later, saying that they aren't having a great season. They are bottom of the constructors by 28 points now. Franco Colapinto, it doesn't seem to have worked out. The most positive thing that they talked about on the broadcast this weekend was that he brought in a new sponsor, Mercado Libre, that was on the back of the car. But the performance doesn't seem to be there of the car, of the drivers. It even feels like Gasly's tapped out a little bit, even though he signed a new contract.
I think that car is awful. I think there's a reason why they are leaving Renault as their constructor. And I think it shows. But I think they've known about these issues for so long now. They've known about it for like 2 years in the regulations.
Yeah.
And so that car's just consistently gotten worse. And you can only outdrive the car and the engine so far. You can't do much more than that.
It's strange, isn't it? Because they had a big marketing push as well, where they did that whole investment thing with Anthony Joshua, Rory McIlroy, I think, as well, and some of the footballers. And you're like, oh, okay, Alpine are making some moves.
I think Carlos is even a part of it.
Carlos
Sainz.
What, he's invested in another team?
Yeah.
Is that allowed? Is that not a conflict of interest?
He's got an interest in it, yeah.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that. Right, but Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. They're going to have the Mercedes power unit next year, and we saw what that meant for Williams when the hybrid started in 2014, didn't we? That pumped Williams back towards, the top of the midfield and winning races and stuff. So, yeah, so who knows? Maybe it could all flip around for them. If you were Pierre Gasly, why would you sign for that long deal?
Probably because of the new engine.
Right, okay.
And he probably has a very strong exit clause, but I don't think he has anywhere to go. Where is he going to go?
Yeah. Yeah, and he is French.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, they're never going to get rid of him.
Who races alongside him next season for you?
After last week, not Franco, because I think Franco has burned that bridge slightly, unless he continues to bring in more money.
Yeah. Yeah. What about the F2 champion? Maybe they could wait and see who wins F2 and bring them in.
Yeah, there's always that option, and I think
Bortoletto showed us, hasn't he, that there's, it's possible, and that even if it's
French.
Pardon?
If Yuki decides to go learn French.
Yeah, too true. Yeah, that's what Gary's saying here in the chat box as well. Yuki to Alpine. So we will see. But something needs to change in that team. And Flavio Briatore, I'm sure will get the changes done, or will definitely be shouting at a lot of people to make it happen. Listen, Jordan, next up, we turn our attention to Mexico. We've got is it three races in a row, or do we get a gap after this one?
It's Mexico and Brazil.
Yeah. So there's a gap between Mexico and Brazil, isn't there? So what are your predictions for Mexico?
Yeah.
Like what do you think's going to happen? Well, just generally, how's it going to pan out? Do you think Max Verstappen is still going to be pushing towards the front? Can Papaya turn it? Huh?
I think Max will be at the front, but I think my hope, I'm not going to say it's what I think will happen, but my hope is Oscar will turn it around. I think
you are making the good point about the altitude as well, which is why it makes it such a difficult race.
I think there will be at least one mechanical failure because of that as well.
Oh, Gary's bringing George back into P2 and Charles Leclerc with another podium. Why not Lewis, Gary? Come on, we can't have Lewis go the whole season without a Grand Prix podium.
Because I think Lewis will do Brazil. That's my thing. Oh. I think there's something about Lewis at the races that he knows really well. Like Silverstone, Coda, Brazil, those races that he loves, I think you can see it.
Spirit of Ayrton Senna. But Gary's saying team orders. He thinks that Leclerc will get ahead. Team orders. Gaz, do you think there's a conspiracy behind the scenes at Ferrari? We will see. But listen, Jordan, it's been fantastic to catch up with you once again. And thank you for joining us on the show. I know you're going to the FE female test, aren't you, next week in Valencia?
I'm going to be there for all the preseason testing, so it's going to be very busy. Hopefully it'll be warmer than London.
Yes, and I hope you have a fantastic experience there. Get lots of great snaps and make sure that you spread them across the socials as well. Everybody that's watching, you can see her handle there, Jordan.TaylorC. And you've also got a photographer handle as well, haven't you?
I do.
Yeah, so we'll all keep an eye out for it and just make sure you spread it across the socials. And I will also spread it far and wide. And thank you so much for joining us here this evening, Jordan. It's been a pleasure to catch up with you once again. I hope you enjoy the rest of the season. And I hope it goes all the way down to Abu Dhabi. And who's going to be your champion? Go on quickly.
Oscar Piastri.
Oh, okay. Well, listen, we're going to be clipping those all together at the end of the season.
Oh, God.
I've got it from everyone all year so far. So you may be made to pay for that prediction.
I wonder who I said in Monaco.
Yeah, I know. We'll clip both of them and put them both in.
Oh. I think I was consistent. I think I was very consistent.
Yeah, because Oscar started the season very well, so possibly you did. So hopefully, fingers crossed. But listen, it's been an absolute pleasure to catch up with you. The regulars in the chat box, thank you so much for your time. The likes of Gary and Ewan, thank you for the support in the show as always. We'll be posting bits and pieces across the working week, so please, if you see those, make sure you like them and share them far and wide, as it really helps the show. And we'll see you back in a week's time to review everything from Mexico. Until then, adios. Thank you so much, my dear.